If you love hosting over the holidays, swap out your old HVAC filter with a Filtrete air filter. It can help clear away particles from all your holiday cooking. Look for Filtrete air filters at a retailer near you. Let's clear the air.
Lacuna Health is a call center that goes beyond answering calls. Our highly trained staff handles the clinical needs of patients and extends the care of your practice 24/7. Our experienced RNs offer HIPAA-compliant nurse triage that helps to reduce unnecessary emergency room visits and monitor patient health using your standards and protocols. We answer calls within 30 seconds, and patients have nursing care within 30 minutes. Click Contact Us at lacunahealth.com to see how we can help.
Hey, and welcome to the HA podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, the host of this podcast, the founder of the HA Society, and an HA recovery coach who has walked wherever you currently are. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. I would love it if you could rate and review this podcast, 5 stars only, to help make this podcast easier for other women with HA to find it. And last thing, nothing from this show should be taken as medical advice. Please seek the advice of your physician. The HA Society is taking clients. Coach Ashley and I work one-on-one with HAers, as we call you, to help you figure out a plan and, of course, implement it and stay accountable. Whether you've worked with a health practitioner already and you just want to stay accountable and strategic with the plan that they've laid out for you, or you want to start from scratch looking at all the aspects of your recovery needs and to create a game plan to reach those needs, then we are definitely your girls. When you sign up to work one-on-one with one of us, we're going to go over your history, your biggest obstacles, ensure that we're taking into account your specific goals, and start making a plan to reach them. So those goals could be getting your period back, could be getting pregnant, could be getting back to exercise or sport, or simply working on your mindset around your body image and long-term recovery. We also can teach you the fertility awareness method. So if you want to learn that so that you have the skills you need to go out into the world on your own without fear of getting HA again, we have got your back. So our coaching packages are either weekly or bi-weekly and only a month at a time commitment. So you're not paying tons and tons of money for 5-6 months. It's month to month, which is awesome. Makes perfect sense for period recovery, right? So to learn about other women's experiences working with us and to apply for a coaching spot, plus ask any questions that you might have before getting started, just go to thehasociety.com/coaching. Hey guys, and welcome back to the HA podcast. Today's episode is something that I know all of you can tell is the direction that I like to move in, which is there's this focus in the space of like just eat more, do no exercise, and like that's the recipe for success. When there's actually so much more to it, right? We're painting a much bigger picture about the full context of your life and how HA recovery can actually be so much more than just gaining weight. And yeah, you'll know this is important to me. So we have a special guest, Murray Young, and she is this is what she does. This is what she talks about. She preaches. So I'm excited to have a conversation with her about it. And hopefully you guys walk away with a few nuggets that make you feel a bit more empowered about taking on, wellness and HA into your whole life. So welcome to the show, Murray.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I'm really excited. Will you tell us a little bit more about like who you are, what you do, and why this is so important to you?
Yeah. So first of all, if you hear my accent, I'm from the south of France originally, but I live in Canada now, and I am a mom to 2 little boys. I am a holistic nutritionist by training, but I call myself a nutrition mindset coach because that's really what I do. Is I help people walk through the transformation instead of just like giving them an eating plan and stopping there, right? But the way I got to where I am now, I'm very multi-passionate and multifaceted, as you'll be able to tell. But, I grew up on a boat. I became a professional athlete in the sailing industry. Then I became a journalist. Then I became a pilot, at which point I realized after like 8 years in the aviation industry that I had been doing everything my entire life for people-pleasing purposes. Like I basically had no idea who I was or what I liked. And it was through healing my relationship with food that everything in my life started falling into place and making sense, including recovering from hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is something that I had struggled with. So it was definitely a secondary HA. Like I got my period when I was 13. I was put on the pill really quickly at that point. I think it was 14 or something when I was put on the pill. And so I kept on having periods that were artificial. And so I thought everything was good until I decided to go off the pill when I was about 25. So I'd been on the pill for over a decade at that point because I wanted to conceive a child. And, period never came at that point. And I had struggled with, so you can tell in my story probably some common threads and some commonalities of most of us who struggle with HA, right? There's the people pleasing, there's the high achiever thing, there's the fact that I was a professional athlete, although never underweight, but definitely on the leaner side, also had struggled with, I call it eating disorders, but let's be milder about it. Let's say it was disordered eating. Like there was definitely some poor behaviors around food. So all of those things kind of, and being on the pill for a really long time, any of those things could have caused HA. And the thing is, we never really know what causes it, right? So I find myself miserable in my aviation career, going off the pill, no period. And that's where I really started rebuilding me, rebuilding my body, my mind, my soul, my career, figuring out who I was and what I loved. And I realized that I always had a passion for nutrition. And so that's at that point, I took the training to become a holistic nutritionist and repaired my own relationship with food at the same time. And so my career as a nutritionist and then a nutrition mindset coach kind of evolved and keeps taking many twists and turns. But I have worked with quite a few women who, we attract who we are, right? And so the high achievers, the people pleasers, the ones who've had, disordered eating patterns and stuff. And I found that a lot of them also suffered from HA. And so that is how I ended up, really applying what I applied with my own recovery to what I do now with my clients. So yeah, that's how I got to where I am.
Awesome. I really love a good story about how people didn't just get their period back, they got their whole life back. And it sounds like you were, a classic overachiever.
Yeah.
Being a pilot, like that's like the epitome to me of, for some reason, of, just like super academic, super driven, really determined. So what was the point that you actually realized, like what happened that made you realize you needed to make a bit of a change?
Yeah, so it was a combination of a bunch of different things, obviously, but there were a couple really defining moments. One of them was defining in my relationship with food, really, was one morning I was sitting across from my husband having breakfast, and we were both having bagels with cream cheese on it, except that he was having regular cream cheese and I was having no fat cream cheese. I'm not even saying low fat, it was no fat.
Delicious.
And I bite into that thing and I'm like, this is disgusting. Like, this tastes awful. What is in this stuff? And for the first time in my life, I looked at the ingredients as opposed to looking at the calories. And I couldn't pronounce any of them. And I had this like big light bulb moment being like, wow, I'm really poisoning myself for the sake of saving a few calories here. And so that was kind of one of the defining moments where I was like, well, okay, I really got to look at my, my relationship with food. And as I started doing that, that's really when, I realized that I ate to like I was an emotional eater, and then of course I would restrict and start counting calories in some sort of crazy way where and ending up with like no fat cream cheese kind of thing. And I realized that my issues with food were really just a symptom of a life that I didn't like. I was miserable in my career, and I had so much anxiety all the time as a pilot. I fell into it. Most people become pilots. It's not an easy profession to get into, not so much because it's hard to fly an airplane, but because, believe it or not, it's extremely difficult financially. Like as a new fresh pilot, you're really not paid anything. So if you have no passion for it, what are you doing being a pilot, right? But for me, it was something I fell into because my boyfriend at the time wanted to become a pilot. And I was like, hey, if he can do it, I can too, and then people were proud of me and I wanted to keep pleasing them. So anyway, it was that one moment where I was like, well, okay, like the reason I'm poisoning my body or, overeating and binging and restricting, and this is all going to sort itself out when I can start doing things that make me happy. And that's where, the holistic component of everything I do kind of comes in, where I'm like, well, yeah, we can look at food issues, but they're never in isolation. The reason we overeat or binge or restrict or try and exercise some form of control over food, there's always a deeper reason for this. And when we're extremely happy and loving our life, that's not usually something that we do. And so I was like, okay, that was kind of the beginning of like, what can I do to be happy? Like, what do I even enjoy? Like, I didn't even know.
That's so interesting that you pursued so many things because I don't know, of like the external gratification from it, or just because it felt like you had gotten some messaging in your life that this was just the right thing to do, was to choose achievement over happiness.
Yes.
So that's really cool. You've gotten to this point now where you're having this realization. You've obviously discovered nutrition now after reading this label and diving into that world. So what did your recovery process look like?
Yeah. So if we're talking about the recovery from HA, it came after sort of recovering from my dysfunctional relationship with food. I think that I had a good few years under my belt of learning to really fall in love with the foods that I ate, and through that finding a career that I liked. So the pieces of my life were kind of falling into place. Now, I was having a hard time because, and I think there's a lot of women in that boat too. The reason I wanted to recover from HA was because I wanted to conceive a child. And I was miserable, right? Just it took a while for me to get an actual diagnosis of HA, even though I had done so much reading and research. I kind of knew that's what it was. But I lived at the time in a fairly isolated community in Canada. And so there were no like real specialists or anything. So I was just working with the local gynecologist who kept like kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick, and I was like, what? And I was kind of steering him in different direction. Well, we should try this, we should try that. And he was like, sure, let's try this. So it was not very productive. So it took a few years of me just being so frustrated with, I still can't conceive the child, right? And finally, I was able to be referred to a fertility clinic and, diagnosed me with HA. And I did a few sort of half-baked attempt at conceiving the child with fertility drugs. Now, the first thing I was told when I first went to that first fertility clinic that I went to, which obviously I didn't stick with, because the first thing I was told was, who cares if you don't have a period? You know, we'll get you pregnant. Who cares if you never have a period in your life? And I know that a lot of women have heard this as well. And as as a trained nutritionist at the time with a very sort of holistic view of everything, and I was like, no, actually, I care and I should care. It matters, right? But I really did want to conceive a child. And so I went down the path of the fertility treatments. It's just interesting to note that the month that I conceived my first kid was through fertility treatments, but it was after I quit officially aviation. So it was like, one last big block that was in the way of me living the life that I wanted to live kind of fell away. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I want to be a nutritionist. Obviously, I don't make enough money at that point to really replace my aviation income, but I got to that point where I just couldn't take it anymore. So I quit aviation and bam, got pregnant through fertility treatments. And so that was one more piece of the puzzle that was like, okay, there is something to that. Like, yeah, I don't have my period back, but there's clearly something that works better when my life is in alignment, Mm-hmm. And I kept on really nourishing myself well. I was eating mostly, and I still do, mostly plant-based diet, but never being afraid of fat. I wasn't forcing the calories or anything, but I just wanted to be as nourished as I could. And I was also seeing a therapist at the time who told me one of the most impactful things ever. When I was really frustrated and struggling to conceive my child, she said, I'm like, everybody keeps telling me that it's going to happen when I stop thinking about it. And she said, yeah, sometimes that's the case, but also in other times, things happen when you work damn hard at them. And I was like, okay, I'll take that one, because I'm working damn hard at just being the healthiest I can be and nourishing myself really well. And that was what I could control. And so, I conceived my child, I kept on going. And a couple of years after that, we decided it was time to conceive a second child. And that's when, so now I had like sort of the life design piece in place, I had the nutrition piece in place. And that's when the big mindset piece came in the picture, because we wanted to conceive a second child. And, I was starting to sort of have this spiritual mindset practice every morning where I would visualize my hypothalamus reconnecting to the rest of my body. Now, this is as unscientific as it gets. Like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what a hypothalamus looks like. It just felt right to me. I knew that HA, was this disconnect between the hypothalamus and the rest of the body. And I just kept picturing it, for 5 minutes in the morning, sending little signals to the rest of my body. And one day somebody asked me, are you going to have a second kid? And I said, for us, it's a long and costly process. And in that moment, I caught myself and I was like, wait, I should not be telling this story. Not to myself, not to my own brain, and not to anybody else. And in that moment, I caught myself. And the next day, I got my period back for the first time in 7 years. I conceived my child, and, a couple of years, or probably took about a year and a bit after I conceived it, my period came back. And so, now I have regular cycles and all that. So really long story, but my point in this is it sounds like it was that mindset shift. And then the very next day it all came back and I was healed. But really it was those years of getting those pieces of the whole puzzle to come together. The career, the nutrition, the mindset, the spiritual connection, all of that.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot there. It's like, I'll touch on that, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
comment on that. So first of all, I didn't talk to my hypothalamus, but I talked to my ovaries.
There you
And
go. Yeah.
I also, yeah, I felt like that visualization piece, that communication piece, I do believe in it, even if
Mhm.
it's only anecdotally, because what you're doing is positive reinforcement, is, you know, making decisions around what you want, is manifestation at a minimum, you know, is what it
Exactly.
is, which is like when those things are front and center in your mind, it's also allowing you to make the next best decision for
Mhm.
your recovery. A lot of us are in HA recovery and we come to choice points constantly. I'm at a choice point and I could make the decision to exercise today,
Mhm.
or I could make the decision to restrict. But
Mhm.
when we're doing these things like visualization and connecting
Mhm.
with our body, it puts us in a better position to make the decision that's going to move us in the direction we want to go.
Yeah.
And you talk about your fertility and how, like,
Mhm.
even the changes you were making most likely made your ability to be successful at fertility treatment
Mhm.
better. Yes, 100%. We have so many girls come into the community who are like, I tried fertility treatment and it didn't work, and it
Yeah.
didn't work. And then we get girls who, you know, they come down the recovery process and for whatever reason, you know, waiting for a full natural cycle isn't right for them and their family.
Mhm.
Maybe their husband travels a lot and like
Yep.
the timing is a challenge. They're in their mid 30s, like they need to get things moving. Okay, cool, let's do it, but let's get your body to a place where it's more likely to be successful for you.
Yeah.
All of these things are so important, and I think it's really cool that you touched on that and could see that, like, you did the work to make fertility treatment work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point, right? We can only, we there's only so much we can control. We can't control the outcome of the fertility treatment. And we also can't, I was having this conversation with a client of mine just a couple of weeks ago. And the point is, you can't control exactly when the period's going to come back, or when you're going to be healed, or whether that fertility treatment is going to pan out. But what can you control? You can control how well you nourish yourself. You can control how stressed you are or not stressed. There are things we can control. And so that's where our focus should go. One thing I didn't talk about was the exercise piece. And because that's also a fairly controversial, I guess, aspect of my journey. Being a former professional athlete, I always loved moving my body. And after I was done with sailing, which was a long time ago, I didn't find for almost a decade a sport as something that really excited me, that made me happy. But when I went on this whole journey to figure out what I loved and what made me happy, I actually realized that I loved running. That running was something that I came to for me, by me. Like, it was never something I did for somebody else or that I learned from somebody else. It was literally, I don't know how I came across it, but I was like, I love running. And so, of course, as I was working with my little gynecologist up in northern Canada, who was like kept on trying a bunch of things with me, one of the first things he said was, "Well, you got to stop running. You got to stop running. You got to put on 15 pounds." And I did, and it made me really miserable. And I stopped for maybe, I think it was about 9 months, and maybe had I kept on doing it, kept
9
on
months is a
not
long
doing
time.
anything. Yeah, maybe my period would have come back at that point. I don't know. The point was, I was miserable. And so I made that conscious decision to start running again. I figured if I was going to have to go through fertility treatments, through being frustrated with not getting pregnant, that I might as well do things that made me happy. And so I kept on running, and I actually ran a full marathon just a couple of months before getting pregnant with my second kiddo, before getting my period back. And that's something that might be controversial, but that is the one question I tell, when you talk about choices.
This episode is brought to you by Vital Proteins. I have been a collagen freak for ages, and I started off making my own bone broth because I could not find a collagen supplement that I actually liked. I started taking collagen early in my HA recovery, and no, it's not going to return you, period, but it is going to support you along the way. As I was learning about how to optimize my health and my skin and how to return my cycle, all of the things, it became apparent that in the past, I had been exclusively eating like lean meats, avoiding the fattier cuts, avoiding meat on the bone, avoiding eating enough animal protein or animal products in general. And all of those things bring important vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that are really important for fertility. And one of those things was collagen, and it's the most abundant protein in your body. And it has an important role. Like, it provides structure to your skin and it helps your blood clot. It's one of the major building blocks of your bones and your skin and your muscles and your tendons and your ligaments. It's also found in many other body parts like blood vessels and your corneas and your teeth. So you can kind of think of it like the glue that holds all of these things in our body together. When I started taking collagen and drinking bone broth and all of that good stuff, I started noticing a huge improvement in my skin and my hair and my nails. Like, that was the first thing I noticed. And that's because collagen stimulates cells that boost the production of new collagen to support healthy hair, nails, and skin, as well as boost the production of new collagen to support healthy bones and joints and muscles and tendons, which we all know is really important right now, especially if we have been missing our cycle for a bit. Making my bone broth got really tiring as much as I love it, especially in the summer. I did not want to be cooking this big pot of soup every week for hours and like dealing with this animal, this like chicken carcass, and it was all of a lot of work. So I was really excited when I finally found Vital Proteins. Today, they have a bunch of products and I love them. And I take the collagen peptide powder. So each serve of Vital Proteins, it depends, they have lots of different products, but the one I take, it has a serve of 20 grams of collagen, 100% of my daily value of vitamin C, which is an important vitamin antioxidant that can help promote the production of collagen inside of your skin, which is, really good for your skin. So it comes in a powder form, which I love because it dissolves in either hot or cold liquids, so coffees and smoothies. And I actually mix mine into my yogurt bowl each morning. So I'm having plenty of fats from that, like fats from the yogurt and carbs from all of the fruit and the goodies that I put on it, and then protein also from the dairy, but adding in the collagen just helps boost it up and get me more of what I've been missing for quite some time. So add some Vital Proteins collagen to your day. Head to vitalproteins.thehasociety.com or head to the link in the show notes and shop their whole range to find a collagen edition that works for you. If you subscribe to their mailing list, you'll get 25% off your very first order. And if you stay subscribed, you continue to receive 15% off. So it's definitely worth checking out. And they do ship internationally. Head to vitalproteins.thehasociety.com or go to the link in the show notes.
That's the one question I tell my clients to ask themselves. It's, why am I exercising? Like, is it because it's making me super happy and bringing me joy? Or is it because I'm counting calories or trying to burn off last night's dinner, right? In which case, that's probably not a good idea. But if it is essential for your mental health and you are, you feel so great and so happy, please don't stop moving your body. Like, that might be one of the most controversial things that I say, but if it makes your life work, why would you stop?
Yeah, we talk about that approach to recovery on the show a bit. We like a
there's definitely a lot of places where talking about exercise and recovery is a no-go, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like strictly banned conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We do talk about it because clearly some people if people are actually achieving recovery while exercising, we can't lie and say that they're not.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible. And what you're saying is just completely true. It depends on where it's coming from for
Mm-hmm.
you. And yes, there are important things to keep in mind that maybe you can touch on that you did to be able to safely have exercise continue being a part of your life, like
For
running.
sure.
You know, we always say if you are eating before and after training, if you are eating above the minimum recommendation for HA, because remember that the minimum caloric recommendation for HA is based on someone not doing exercise.
Yeah.
So if you are, you eat more than that. You rest enough, you sleep enough, you prioritize de-stressing. All of these things are really important.
Yeah.
So where did that stuff fall in there for you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting dilemma for me. It was anyway, because coming from a background of disordered eating and obsessively counting calories, a huge part of recovering, not from HA, but from my disordered relationship with food, was to make that decision to stop counting calories. And that's also something I see with HA recovery is we focus on this number of calories that might be a high number, or, it doesn't matter what the number is. The point is we're still focusing on a number. And I found that for me, that was extremely detrimental. Like I had healed my relationship with food by not counting calories anymore. And I knew that in order to heal something else like HA, it probably wasn't going to be the right answer for me to start counting calories again, even if it meant, counting calories to get to a certain higher number. Like that just was still the same thing, which was an obsession with calories, and that still wasn't going to work for me. So, I took a very fluid approach to it, really tuning inwards to my body, with my body, and being like, hey, like I didn't run. Now I'm not an elite marathoner, right? I don't have a super low level of body fat or anything like that. I did run a full marathon by just running long, slow distances and fueling a lot, making sure that every, I'm going to say calorie, even though I didn't really count calories. Like, yeah, I can't unknow the calorie knowledge that I have, obviously. So I know if I'm going on a 6-mile run that I'm going to burn about 600 calories, right? And so, yeah, for sure, I made sure to eat, a big breakfast before and a big recovery snack after, and just kind of let it be super fluid and not being like, oh my goodness, like if I ate, if I exercise like and burn 600 calories, I have to make sure to, eat like 700. It wasn't like that, but it was like, okay, I went for 6 miles, like I'd better have a big recovery snack after, kind of thing. And just tried not to be obsessive about the numbers, but definitely have that balance of exercise versus eating. And yeah, I ditched my scale, my bathroom scale, early on in my recovery from my relationship with food. And that was another thing, right? We tend to obsess over numbers. Us in the HA community and just high performers in general, we hyperfixate on calories or the bathroom scale or the number of miles that we ran or the numbers in our bank account. Like I found that I actually transferred their obsession with numbers onto money. A different conversation, but it's true. We tend to be pretty obsessive around that, right? So yeah, with exercise, it's really, I chose to take that stance of being much more sort of almost spiritual and woo-woo and unscientific as I could about the whole thing, to be like, hey, is this bringing me joy? Is this making me super happy? Is this something that I look forward to? And I can tell you, like, if tomorrow I stop looking forward to running, I won't do it anymore. It was about that. It was about joy, making sure that I felt nourished, not just in a food kind of way, but also in a soul and mind kind of way.
That's awesome. There's definitely a lot of people out there really trying to like recover based on the science and
Mhm.
allowing like their anxious self to control the process.
Mhm.
So when you work with women, for example, like how do you help them reach this point? Because a lot of girls are listening, being like, that sounds lovely. I want to get there.
Yeah.
Give me some tips or tell me how someone like you, or I don't know, might approach helping me get to that place.
Yeah. So I always use a similar framework with everyone that I work with, and of course ends up being highly individual through, within that framework. But I call it the FLY system. It's food, lifestyle, and you. So we do start with food just to make sure that we sort of iron any kinks out of nutrition, right? We start by figuring out what they're currently eating, what's the current picture of where they're at and what they're eating. I like to focus on real food, even though I'm mostly plant-based myself, I don't advocate this for anyone, like if for everyone. It's just what we all have, those foods that we love that love us back, I like to call them. Like we have foods that we know we enjoy eating that also happen to be really good for our health and make us feel great. So those are the ones that we want to focus on in priority. And so, yeah, I don't tend to give people an eating plan. I like it to come from them. So we put it together, like we'll sit down via Zoom and say, hey, what are those foods that you love, that love you back, and how can we plug them into a blueprint or a template that will support great nutrition. And I don't put a specific number of calories, even though I have the knowledge of the calories, but I don't want my client focusing on the calories. So we just make sure that they have go-tos, as in like a couple of different options for breakfast, a few different options for lunch, a few different options for dinner that they can just sort of pick and choose from, that I know will give them enough calories, but it's not, yeah, it's not an exact science, right? So that's the nutrition piece. And then that's the food part. And then the lifestyle part is really your habits, your routines, your rituals, because that's what designs our life. So, are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Like what feels good to you, and how can we design your day with a lot of intention, right? Do you like to move your body? That's where the exercise piece comes in. Okay, well, what do you love? What do you enjoy? Can we make it fit with your plan? Most of my clients just end up going for long walks because it's pleasurable to them. And so great, let's do that. Let's make sure that in your day, there's that space for you to go for a nice long walk. Do you want a morning routine? Do you want to spend 5 minutes visualizing whatever you need to visualize, whether you need to be talking to your hypothalamus or your ovaries or whatever's going to work for you to have this practice of tuning in and reconnecting to your body? Let's plug that into your daily design. And then the last piece of the system is you. So when I talk about you, I talk about mindset, and I talk about also being a part of something greater, like a sense of purpose. Because when we're recovering from HA, we're very, and I don't want to use the word self-centered, because that might feel offensive, but it's true. Whether, even if we're like, say, recovering from cancer or anything, like we have to be, right? Like we're focused on
time
us.
when we need to bring our attention to ourselves.
Yeah, we're focused on us and our body, but I like with that part of my system to kind of expand our horizons and be like, okay, well, do you have a sense of purpose in your life though? Do you have, something that excites you, that can get you out of yourself, out of your head, out of your body? Like, how can you give back in a way that is exciting to you? Because sometimes it's not that we're going to stop thinking about it, but getting out of ourselves and sort of starting to give back and to do things that excite us, that serve others at the same time can also, as a side benefit, help our own life and our own body work better, right? When we get out of our head, we stop obsessing over the things, right? We're like, okay, this is our sense of purpose. So that's why I really can't call myself just a nutritionist anymore, because we start with food, yes, but we always go so far beyond, and we end up having conversations around, what are you doing in your career? Like, is it something that you like? Is it time to change it? What are you doing in your relationship? Do you have friends? Do you those conversations that are super important, and we tend to forget about them altogether when we're just focused on how many calories did I eat today? You're muted. Hold on.
Oh, there you go.
There you are.
we're actually really aligned with that. I completely agree that, when I call myself an HA recovery coach, it's basically, all right, like, let's look at the lifestyle factors. Let's put a plan in place. And also, now what are we going to do with that extra 3 hours a day that you're not spending in the gym? Like, what do you want to be doing? And that's really where a lot of the success comes from, because it takes our attention away from recovery. A lot of us bring recovery in, but we don't look at what else we need to be bringing in. And so the focus becomes about recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not bringing us more joy and happiness and purpose, like you're saying. Yeah. I mean, having purpose, they say that the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's purpose.
I've heard that before, and I love it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool saying. And it's just so true. And that needs to be a huge part of it. Like, what is being so focused on, whatever it is that got you into HA in the first place, taking away from your life? Yeah, I love it.
That's a great question. And yeah, I hate to think about HA recovery as in like we're just sitting and waiting for a period to come back. But if that's what's going to happen, if time is going to pass anyway, right? Because time is a factor. Like, we do need to be patient, as much as we hate to hear that. So while the time passes, we might as well do things that bring us joy and build things that will help us leave a legacy that matters, right? Instead of just sitting waiting. Like, we're still being active in our recovery. We're still doing the things that we can control in terms of nutrition and mindset and stuff. But at the same time, like, let's use our time to make a difference to even just like our family, right? Let's use our time to be a more pleasant person to be around, instead of just waiting and just obsessing on when is it going to come back.
100%. And just like from my story, mine's a little bit different in the sense that I allowed my fascination with recovery to then like create a whole podcast and a business around recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect that of everyone, but it makes a lot of sense for me based on my skill set, my passions, and my interest.
Yeah.
But it's helped change so many people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a little list on my wall of every girl that's gotten pregnant because of the work I'm doing. And it's like, wow, that's really impactful to me. And I hope that with time, it makes the purpose so much bigger. And for me, the purpose isn't really like how many girls can I get pregnant or how many periods can I get back? But I am so excited at the idea that a girl will message me one day and say, because you helped me like get through this, I, insert incredible thing that impacted way more people's lives here. Like,
it's the ripple effect.
Yeah. What if some girl, is able to refocus her attention and like win a Nobel Peace Prize one day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It is about the ripple effect. So having a sense of purpose or making an impact is not just speaking on stages in front of, tens of thousands of people. it's about helping, maybe just a handful of people, and not necessarily, like you said, like not necessarily with the one thing that you struggled with, right? Or that you're still struggling with. So it doesn't have to be, you don't always have to turn that pain that you're going through into a purpose. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, I struggle with HA, so my purpose is to help others with HA, or I struggle in my relationship with food, so I'm going to become a nutritionist. But those are pieces of your life to look at, like where can you help? Where can you help? Maybe it's something you've learned, not necessarily through struggle, but it's something that, that you've done that you're proud of and you want to share it. Like that can create a ripple effect. So anyway, it's funny because those conversations, I'm loving this conversation, and it's always kind of the same thing where we start with one thing, like, okay, let's recover from HA, or let's, I have a lot of clients who still just come to me for like the reasons that have nothing to do with HA, like they want to lose weight kind of thing. That's a very common reason people come to me as a nutrition coach. But we always start with that one thing, and we always end up so far beyond it. We start with the food, we start with, with like what you need to do for HA recovery, how much exercise you need to do or not do, and all that stuff. But then it becomes about, what do you want your life to be about?
Yeah,
because that's the point. And that's also something I do with my clients that I would encourage anybody listening to do as well, is to really think about why. What's your why for getting your period back? It might seem obvious, especially if you're trying to conceive a child. Your first answer might be, oh yeah, well, it's because I want to get pregnant. Or maybe it's like, because I want to feel whole and I want my body to work well, or I want to reduce my risk of having those hormonal imbalances or bone issues later in life. But that's the first layer of why. So I would encourage you to play this little game where you start with asking yourself the question and answering why, but then digging deeper. Oh yeah, but why is that important to me? And then dig deeper again. But why is it important to me? Because when you dig really deep and you end up with a why that feels like you've reached the bottom, right? Like, and you're like, oh yeah, that's my deepest why. It becomes a driving force rather than a source of frustration. It becomes something that pulls you forward as opposed to keeping you stuck. And it helps you envision that big picture of what you're trying to create, and what, where does HA recovery fit into this life that you're trying to create. And because I can guarantee you, if your why, one of your deepest whys is to feel whole and balanced and joyful and healthy, like the second question I have for you is, what can you do today to feel that way? Because maybe it's not that you don't have to keep working towards that goal of recovering and achieving your biggest, deepest why, but you might be able to tap into it today. Like, what is one thing you can do today to feel that way?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, hopefully a lot of you guys listening are just thinking a little deeper about your focus, where your focus is at, where you maybe could be pivoting a bit. And hopefully you're feeling a little bit inspired. And really getting your life back, which is what I like to say. It's not just about getting your period back, it's about getting your life back. So that was really helpful. Thank you so much. I think there's going to be a bunch of people who want to hear more from you and learn more about you. So where can they do that?
Yeah, I'm mostly active on Instagram at Bloom with Marie, all in one word, Bloom with Marie. My website is bloomwithmarie.com. And, I have an ebook with, it's called the Empowered Eaters Handbook. It's about putting strategies in place to really not hyper focus on your nutrition anymore. So that could be helpful for anyone struggling with HA. I have a couple of books that I'm writing right now, mostly about healing your relationship with food. So I have, and I'm also writing a cookbook because I'm obsessed with cooking and baking. So I have a lot going on, and yeah, you can keep up with me mostly at bloomwithmarie.com or on Instagram at bloomwithmarie, and schedule a chat with me, like a 30-minute free chat, because I'll help you in any way that I can. Even if we don't end up working together as a client-coach relationship, I'll help you in those 30 minutes, and I love learning about the people who are interested in the things that I'm interested in. So the people that I attract, we obviously have stuff in common. And so let's talk.
Super generous. Thank you. I put links to her website in the show notes, guys. So go check it out. I hope you all have a really good day and feel inspired and go and do something creative and big and deep with your life today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Have a good day.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much, because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Lacuna Health is a call center that goes beyond answering calls. Our highly trained staff handles the clinical needs of patients and extends the care of your practice 24/7. Our experienced RNs offer HIPAA-compliant nurse triage that helps to reduce unnecessary emergency room visits and monitor patient health using your standards and protocols. We answer calls within 30 seconds, and patients have nursing care within 30 minutes. Click Contact Us at lacunahealth.com to see how we can help.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at tempurpedic.com.